Okay, that's good. All right,
Okay.
here we go. Hi.
Hi.
Oh my God. So first, we should recognize Sunshine before I forget.
Yeah, for sure.
Sunshine is my husband and our daughter, and she is Sunshine Mass Media. No, she's not. She's Sunshine Productions, and she's doing all this stuff for us. She's doing all the lighting and the recording and the editing. So we want to thank her, and we'll talk a lot about her in upcoming episodes.
Yes.
Yay. And we might
This would
invite her
not be
in.
happening like this without Sunshine.
No, we would be like, yeah, no, we know we're supposed to do this for sure. It's a total calling on our life, but we can't do it. I'm sorry.
It's all the technical
We won't be
things
able to
that
figure
have
it
held
out.
us up for the last 3 or 4 years.
Yes. Three, yep.
Yeah.
I feel like it was more like 5.
Something like that.
So Sunshine may pop in and offer her thoughts. So she's going to be close by, and we might ask her to pop in. So as you alluded, we have been talking about this for 5 years. And in this
Do we need
episode...
to introduce ourselves?
Yes. Oh, hi. I'm Angie. I'm Angie Gray.
And I'm ReShonda Young.
And our podcast is yet to be decided actually what we're going to call it, but it will be on your screen by the time you get this. Can I say that? And we'll go back and stick the title in. Yes. Right. She's nodding yes. Okay. So yeah, I'm Angie.
And I'm ReShonda.
And we're going to talk about a lot of things, and all the things are going to be about relationships. We've been talking about doing a podcast. I don't know how it started. I think maybe just because we kept meeting and date. First of all, we started dating, as I call it, so many years ago.
Like 8 or 9 years ago.
9 years ago.
Yeah.
Met ReShonda at actually Sunshine soccer game. And you were doing
Popcorn Heaven.
And it was like a tournament or something. And I was like doing USANA. And, that was like my business at the time. And so, always trying to meet people and want to meet women, that are doing businesses. And you were so kind. You're probably like, who is this chick? Do you even remember how it was? It was easy, right?
It was easy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It wasn't though when we first started. For me, it wasn't. Where did we meet first? At our first date was, I think you gave me your card, your Popcorn Heaven card, and then I called you.
You actually came into the
I
store.
did.
You did. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And
then we started meeting at Cabin Coffee
anymore. Yeah, and we did, and we decided on Cabin Coffee because that was someplace that you went a lot. So,
and it was close to work.
Shout out to Cabin Coffee on
shout
Kimball
out
Avenue, Waterloo, Iowa.
To Cabin Coffee.
Go small business. And so we started meeting there, and that I really did feel like, because I honestly have not had, with all of our kids, I haven't had a ton of female friends. I have, one friend, Julie. Hi, Julie. That, we'd known each other for a very long time, but, with life, we sort of didn't see each other a ton. But outside of Julie and family, I didn't have a lot of friends. And honestly, to your credit, your amazingness, I started to realize the value. I'm going to get out of the Clemton. We're not even 5 minutes in. The value of women friendships.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I have a lot of women friends, but I don't allow very many people close to me. Yeah. And you were a safe space.
Oh,
yeah. So that was good.
Yeah, that's how it felt here too.
Yeah.
And also, so we'll tell our audience, on the surface, there was I feel like the thing we had in common was whatever it was, that inner energy, that would be our faith. We know now, but at the time we didn't really know that. But there was definitely, for me, there was an intuitive, I do feel safe. Like, this feels like she's real.
Right.
And, but on that, like the outside, surfacey, we don't have, I'm a mom of 7 kids, have been married for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Single. I say, when I say no kids, that's not even true, because you were
There are
like
no birth
mom.
children,
Yeah,
but
no,
there are all
that's
these
the way to say that, isn't it?
children. Yes.
Yes, and no birth children. So we, on the surface, maybe we didn't, but actually, both business owners. So anyway, we quickly found out that we had a lot of things in common. What
Hmm.
would you say was our most common denominator that kept us meeting, do you think?
I think it was our drive for success in our own rights.
Mm-hmm.
That plus there was just like that faith energy that
Mm-hmm.
we had between us.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the fact that you also kind of pushed me, even
Yes,
though
pushy.
even though you weren't probably trying to,
Yeah.
maybe it's more of an encouragement to get out of my shell. So
Really?
as like most people don't realize how much of an introvert I am.
Yeah.
Like they just so don't get it.
Yeah.
Um, and you got it pretty quickly. And the fact that I am always kind of staying out of the limelight if I can.
Yeah.
And you were kind of pushing me to not do that so much.
Wow, what an honor that I got to be that person. I
Yeah.
mean, pushy in a good way, maybe.
Pushy in a good way.
And I didn't. I never did mean to be pushy.
You were not pushy.
You know, when I say dating too, I feel like I always say to Todd, dude, if I ever had a date, how horrible it would be. But if I ever did have to date again, which would only be if my husband died, so no worries, Tad. But if I did, it would be so hard. But I've said to my kids, I feel like I would just throw it all on the table, be like, okay, this is who I am. You know, this is my likes, my dislikes, blah blah blah. And I feel like maybe that's what I did with you a little bit, because it did feel like dating, and I wanted you to know. I already liked you like right away.
Yeah.
And I wanted you to know, okay, so here's who I am, and maybe that's not going to be a good fit for you.
So sorry.
Oh,
That,
real life.
yeah.
Real life. Phone's off, everyone.
Yeah. That.
I don't know if mine's off either. So yeah, so that whole dating experience was fun, and I would agree with that. I would say, actually, so there's also going to be a lot of things, and we say this. There's going to be a lot of things that we are going to learn about each other with our audience. So it's super vulnerable. Yeah.
For sure.
Because it's weird.
I think even our conversations today around politics.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, so we may not like each other afterwards.
Yeah. We will.
No, we will. We will. But right, that's why I feel like it's very interesting, and probably one of the things that sparked our, oh, this could be cool, because we are such a friendship that, and as all relationships are always changing and growing, we are growers, and like seeking wisdom and seeking truth and all those things, and yeah, so it's going to be interesting as we learn about each other. And that always did blow my mind as we'd be in these long talks at the kitchen table, and I'd go, oh crap, I feel like you probably don't even know this about me, and like there are major things that you still don't know, because we never even got around to it.
I know. It's only been like 9 or 10 years, Angie.
It's crazy.
I mean, that's all.
I mean, I can think of
It's
already
the same with me,
things.
though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I know there's a ton of things I don't know about you, which is so weird, because I feel like I totally do know you.
Because when we talk like so much.
We do.
But there's still like so many things to talk about.
Yep.
So.
There always is. P.S. If you're listening to this on audio only, you should watch it, because ReShonda is beautiful.
Well, Angie's pretty
Oh
stunning
my
herself.
gosh. I'm gazing into your eyes across.
Oh, you're so funny.
Thingy, whenever we're looking across here. What else did I want to say about that? Oh, and so the common denominators, you were saying, you felt like probably our faith, that you knew
for sure
there
that
was something there. Me too. And there was also a little bit of apprehension, not knowing, like, if I tell you what I really think and what my experiences have been that have brought me to believing what I believe, how will that affect it? Which is like everything, right? Like,
right.
You think that with everybody, but particularly with you, because I really did like you, and I respect you and what you believe. And I knew, I think you probably knew too right away that, oh, that girl's different.
Well, We're all different, Angie.
You
We're
know
all
what I mean?
different.
You know
I
what I mean?
know.
You're like, ooh. Yeah. So same for me. Yeah, definitely. Um, and I was thinking about why we never get to some of the things like, I don't know, I guess details that on the surface again maybe seem really big. Like, oh, that happened to you, or oh, you did that, or oh, you had that experience. Like
Mm-hmm.
for my life, there's a lot of things
Yeah.
that normal folks that know me would never know, or
Oh,
at
that
least
was
I
same
think,
here.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. See, um, we never get to those things because I feel like most of the time we're talking about pies, which we'll introduce maybe today.
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
could.
we don't have to go into that conversation,
Right.
but there's this thing that I'll let you talk about it. But so we do that, and I think we talk about it. Always comes back to our faith, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times our businesses, right? Because
Right.
like those are, and family is all mixed in. That's
It's all
always
mixed in.
relationships, and
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell it really quick about pies? Because that'll be like an intro to what we will talk about a lot sometimes, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. So pies is something that my cousin Mike Robinson and I would do. So he introduced it to me where before or at the beginning of our conversations, we would talk about how are we doing physically? How are we doing intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually?
Mm-hmm.
And it was just our check-in with one another. But I know with the two of us, you
Yeah.
and me, uh, we take pies, I think, a little further than Mike and I would. I
Yeah.
mean, we'd go, you know, just a little bit deep,
Yeah.
but you and I go pretty deep on our pies.
Yeah.
Like our whole conversation
Mm-hmm.
could be pies.
It is because it always leads to something
It
important. And if we
always
don't
leads to
get the
something
full
else.
pie, done, then that's okay too. And it's also super convenient because sometimes in our busy lives we have 30 minutes, and sometimes we're like, okay, let's just go through pies.
Right. Yep.
Physically good, go. And then we go back and forth. But it is a great way, and I have to tell you, and I think I've told you this lots of times, that I have used it a lot, and I absolutely give you credit. But you know what? I did not give your cousin Mike credit because I thought it was your uncle.
Oh,
I thought it was your uncle. So all this time, your uncle has been getting credit for
credit
that.
for what Mike did.
Mm-hmm. But it's such a cool thing, and I hope our audience uses it because it's a great. And actually, I haven't even done it. I think maybe one time at our kitchen table. I thought, with all the kids sitting around, whether there's all of them or
Yeah.
a couple of them, we do high low all the time. Do you
Yeah.
guys do that?
Well, in our business group, we do.
You do.
We
not.
do highs and lows.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's fun. Yeah, we do that at the table, but I'm gonna make that something to do. Is try and do that at the table because it's a great way to just start conversation about things you don't normally maybe talk about,
Mm-hmm.
and then it leads into other cool things.
Yeah.
So let's tell our audience. I mean, it'll be in the description. Oopsie, it'll be in the description about kind of like what we're about. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? What our podcast is going to be in general about?
So it'll be, like you kind of said earlier, it'll be all about relationships. And then we'll be talking about how relationships affect like every area of our life. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of times when people think of relationships, they're thinking of like your friendship or your partner relationship, but or your kids, but it's so much bigger than, the on the surface areas of relationships. So we'll talk about finance, we'll talk about health, we'll talk about family, and we'll talk about our partner relationships. But yeah, it's all about relationships.
Yeah, that is always something that we've agreed on, and I think what's also really cool about that. Well, let me get to that in just a second. I wish I could have a whiteboard and write this down so I don't forget. But excuse me, on relationships, like we would always come back to most often everything is connected to our faith relationship, our relationship with God, and so that one. And then our relationships with ourselves, which like that is like foundationally
For sure.
all the rest of them. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's what we'll be talking about, all things relationships. And hopefully all these conversations they will be, they're very vulnerable. Like it feels vulnerable to, but also cool to be, we've talked about it for so long and I didn't have any nerves about it, maybe just a smidgen, especially the topic that we're going to talk about, which is the upcoming election. We're going to get into that a little bit. I had a little bit of nerves about thinking, oh, that's really vulnerable. But just for a second, because you and I have talked so much about our faith and our relationships and how everything we talk about is stuff that we know that our sisters are talking about, you know, our friends, other women, that we're talking about these things. And it's our idea of relationships has also grown. Like over the last, I don't know, I guess, 9 years for our friendships for certain. But even I feel like for me over the last 5 years, really my relationship with me, my relationship with God, the most important ones have grown so much and evolved so much that it's such a perfect time. And we've said, when are we going to do this podcast? When are we going to do this podcast?
I know, right?
What would you say every time?
Oh my gosh.
You're not going to know, but I do.
What would I say?
You just say that, there must be a reason. We must have other things to learn.
Yes.
God's got
absolutely
some stuff to teach us.
I would say that.
Yeah, you would say that.
Yeah.
And here we are, which is such a trip. So anyway, we hope that you guys like what we're talking about. Now I forgot what I was going to say that I wanted to put a pin in. I think it was just about relationships and how we've evolved. So I think I got it. I think I did it. So we discussed a lot of topics, and because this election is pretty timely, the election is in 4 weeks or 3.5 weeks or something.
Yeah.
So we thought we should talk about it. And the reason I felt a little bit vulnerable is because I know it can be a really hot topic. That's why I was putting a pin in. I know it can be a very heated and emotional topic for a lot of people. For me, it doesn't feel, I think we are so alike, and I want to hear everybody else's perspective. Not everyone is like that, I guess. So I think that we'd be in agreement saying, hey, we're not telling anybody to do anything.
No, we're not telling anybody who we're voting for. We're not telling anybody who they should vote for.
Right.
But there's a lot of conversation, I think, to be had around even the thought around, who do I vote for? Some people be like, it's a no-brainer. And then, others are like, no, maybe it's not. So I just think the conversation is a good one to have.
It's a really good one to have. We've been having it. I mean, we've been having it. That was the thing, is you and I have been having it. Not as much as we even wanted to, because life gets busy, but then there's another reason to take the time and actually talk about it. My mom and I just talked about it at her or last weekend at her birthday, and we went out for breakfast. My kids and I watched, or a couple of the kids and I. I'm sorry, there is a fly.
There's a fly. So if we're like,
hello to Mr. Fly.
Yes.
But so Sunshine and I and her boyfriend Jacob and Daniel, our youngest, and then Todd was here for a bit too, and we all watched the election or the debate with Trump and Kamala not too long, however long ago that was, 3 weeks ago. So we've been having those conversations. My kids are talking about it amongst themselves, which is super interesting to hear. But yeah, I think it's an important conversation to have, and an important one maybe if we can spark some conversation, or I just think the kitchen table is a great place for our family to talk about a lot of things, and politics, the election, our government, our country is a really important one. So
it is.
How do you want to start? Like, we don't really have a greatest plan of all time, but
we really don't, but that's okay.
No. Okay.
So I think, like, when I think about the election specifically, but then I also think about voting in general.
Okay.
So I think about women. I think about the women's suffrage movement, and I think about all of the things of the civil rights movement, and the fact that as women and as minorities, there's so many people who fought for us to have this right. So no matter who it is that you're voting for, I just think it's important to understand what it took to get us to the point where we actually have a vote. And so we should use it. With that, I'll also say I vote like in all the elections, whether it's national or local.
You're really good at it, yes.
But when I think about on the national stage, I don't feel like it doesn't matter who's in office, whether I'm successful or not. is not dependent on them.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember, gosh, I think it was when Bush Jr., second Bush, was in office, and gas prices were skyrocketing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was running my dad's transportation company. And, people are just totally freaking out about the gas prices and, oh my gosh, the world's coming to an end. All the things. But that stuff never really rocked me, even though we're in transportation. And of course, gas prices are affecting us. But that's not the determination of whether or not we're going to be successful. And I think sometimes we get so wrapped up in that person leading the country, like they're going to be our savior. And it's like, absolutely, they are not. Yeah. There's never been a point where they have been. And I don't feel like there ever will be a point where they will be. I think we have to look at issues. And I think it's a danger to look at party, and it's a danger to look at person in the sense of, okay, I am, black woman, I vote for black woman. I am white male, I vote for white male. Like, I think there is a real danger in doing that. I think we have to really look at what are the issues and what does each candidate stand for. Yeah. It can be really, really, really tough because there are some positives and negatives on both sides. And you have to really look at what is it that is most important to me? What are these issues that I think this candidate or that candidate really can have an effect on? And how important is that? Laying out what are my top issues and where do they stand on those? So it is broader than that. Yeah. It is broader. Yeah. But generally speaking, it's like, what are my top issues and where does the candidate stand?
Yeah, because you can get lost in the weeds, right?
You
With
can.
all this stuff. And so breaking it down.
Like, what are my top 10?
Yeah.
And then where do they stand? And who's rising to the top based on what's important to me.
So this is why ReShonda is the best person to be listening to here, because, and that probably was a little bit of, no, not nervous. I wasn't nervous about that, but I'm going to be learning from you. Like you're very versed in way more than I am. I feel like I've only sort of actually even been responsible about it, really, to be really responsible about it over probably the last 3 elections, not certainly the last 2. Tried with 3 ago. But I feel like I'm not alone in, there's a lot of, we're going to just speak to women, right? There's a lot of women like myself that have been raising children and work and careers, like, your career guy, and whatever the excuse is, not the excuse, but the reason that I understand is, and also this is going to be sort of all over the place, but as a woman, for me, ReShonda, that was never something instilled in me that had importance, it's actually such an emotional thing for me, because in this particular election, because we have another opportunity for a woman in office, that's the catalyst, I think, that has raised awareness for me around women's suffrage. I know it because I am one, but there's so much that I had not realized, so much education that I wasn't either privy to or was responsible enough to look into, and it's very emotional for me. Like, it's very emotional. I'm very grateful to be here now. I wish I had known before. I wish I had been more active in being responsible to that. And I look at my daughter, who's in this room right now, 21 years old, and my 2 other daughters and my granddaughters. I didn't do a great job. I don't, for certain, with the first 2, because I was I don't know, like just not aware or
Hmm.
whatever. Anyway, just I'm very proud of them as women, and I want to know more for them, you know.
Sure.
Um, so I want to go back to something that you said because I want to learn a little bit more of that. You said it's so much broader than looking at the issues that are important to you, right? Like, but that's a way to break it down to be doable, right? Almost.
It is.
Okay. Because like what I have said, even in my ignorance, um, I have said I knew intuitively and I felt passionately about, even though I don't get and I'll never get who those that have gone before me, that I get these privileges that I have. I have no idea. I want to, and I love history and those kinds of things. Still, definitely not caught up. I might say give a little name drop here to my sisters, however, which I'm super proud of.
Yeah.
My sister Jennifer and Erin, even my sister-in-law Chris, awesome, awesome at understanding issues and equality and just equity in all things. They're just really, really versed, I guess, or knowledgeable around those things. And they've been a great example to me. Where was I? So back to it being a very, very big thing. I've intuitively felt very passionately about, if I don't know, I'm not going to say anything. I always have voted, but I don't care for folks sharing their opinions if they're also the person that's not going to vote.
Sure.
So even though I have not claimed to know a ton about things that are going on, and it's been frustrating, you know, for my whole adult life, I always did do my best to understand, even though it was always late in the game, you know, trying the best I can to sift through those things. So with what you were saying about the broader issue, that was part of the conversation I had with my mom the other day, in narrowing down, like, what are the most important things to you, the issues to you. What you made me think about is like the passion test. Have you done that before? It's about things that you're passionate about. And a friend of mine did this kind of work where she taught me, and I've used this, where you write out the 10 things that are most important to you. I'm going to botch it, so whoever's familiar with this test, I apologize. But the gist of it is you write out 10 things that are very important to you. So let's say that they are the issues that we're looking at now in this current election. And so you write out the 10 things that were most important to you. And then you look at number 10 and number 9. P.S. That
fly is...
Honey, I don't know what to do, but works in magic, man. There is this fly that is literally in my hair, or then ReShonda's and back and forth. Just, I don't know, somewhere. But anywho, so you write 1 to 10, and then you take number 10 and number 9, and you ask yourself, okay, you have to choose. It's either got to be number 10 or number 9. You have to choose one. Okay. And so let's say you cross out number 9, because if I have to choose, it's going to be number 10. It's very cool. And I may do this for myself, but this is it maybe for those of us like myself who are like, dude, I don't, you know, like it just comes down to some really basic things for me at the end of the day. So number 10 and number 9, let's say I choose number 9. Okay. So you cross out number 10, and now I'm going to look at number 9 and number 8. Which of those? I can only choose one. Oh, I like number 9 still. Okay. So I cross out number 8. Now it's number 9 and number 7. And so you go all the way up, and I think the test takes you to like your top 2 or something, maybe even the last one.
It sounds like the eye doctor.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. Well, now what can you see? Basically, yeah. That's another analogy. So yeah, you made me think of that, and it reminds me also of my conversation with my mom, and really, as maybe it sounds uneducated, but for me at the end of the day, it comes down to sort of, it's just, our media makes it so challenging, for me anyway, to sift through any of it, to go, you know, at the end of the day, I got to put these people, as gross as it is, it's almost like you have to put them on the same thing, like the same even playing field, because like y'all say this and y'all say that, you know, how do I know this is true or that's true, or, you know, how many fact checks here and how many, and so if I put them on an even playing field, even though they're not. It doesn't feel like they are. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I
I
do.
put them here. Then from there, I go, what's most important to me about what I can see. And honestly, I know y'all people aren't going to like this, but also what I can feel. I cannot. And I feel like that's important for us to talk about, because for me, what I feel, and I get, you look at the issues, you don't go on a feeling, blah, 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 blah. You know, do not, and I'm not, no disrespect for people that have that viewpoint. For me personally, how I feel is my barometer. My feelings aren't right, but that intuition, which for me is a God thing, it is like, and that's what guides my
women
life.
have it.
Yeah, and women have it. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so it's that, you know, that thing that's going to guide me to make the best decision for myself. And I feel my country, my family, my country, my community. And ultimately that for me is what it all will boil down to. If I had that list on there, I could check, and it wouldn't take me long. And so that's what it comes down to for me.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It does. It does make sense. I think that's a really good way to look at it. Like, okay, you got to pick this or this or this or that. But then also recognizing that intuition really does play a big role. I think with this current election, of course, Kamala has not been president before. She's vice president, and that is very different than being president. Trump has been president before, and so we can pretty fairly know like
how he would do things,
how he does things.
Yep.
So, but I think there is a lot of benefit to the fact that they both have been on the federal level in public office, because we can see how they voted on various topics over the years. With President Trump, we know the 4 years that he was in office, but when you think about him coming onto the scene initially, we didn't know a voting record for him because he was not in public office. Right. So I think it is good to have two candidates who have now both been in public office, and we can see what has the voting record been. You know, those things are pretty easy with technology today. Super easy to figure out like how they voted, where they stand on things. And then, you know, thinking about not just like today, but for generations to come. So even though I remember when President Obama was elected, and it was the big push around healthcare, and you know, however a person may think about it, healthcare is important for every single American. It is important for every single person, and it was part of it was the reason that I ended up like on national stage to begin with when I was running my dad's businesses, and finding affordable healthcare as a small business was terribly difficult. And you had the exclusion for pre-existing conditions, and you have an employee who is super active, but their height and weight don't quite match. So they're excluded, or someone has high blood pressure, so they're excluded. And you're trying to figure this out. Like we were not a big company. So how do we take care of our people and make sure that as a company, we can recruit and retain the best workforce? But you can't do that without being able to offer health insurance.
No, they're not going to stay too long.
And so that was a really big issue for me. And like I said, it's how, it got me onto the national stage politically, just really pushing for some kind of reform for healthcare. And even though what we have now is not perfect, what we have now is so much better than what we did not have before. So when I think about like, not just for now, but for generations and for many, many years to come, what are the things that a candidate may or may not put in place? I don't know, other candidates that talked about healthcare. healthcare was super important to me. So that was one of the things, like this or not, I believe that this is what this person will do. Unfortunately, something was put in place, and those pre-existing conditions are no longer there.
Yeah,
But when we think about
so big.
such
As
a
a
big,
57-year-old woman, I don't
yeah,
have any pre-existing conditions now, but I mean, I have a hip that's really bothering me. Who knows where that's
well,
gonna go?
yeah, your pre-existing condition, honestly, was like you were a woman.
P.S.
No,
Okay, so see that should probably be our next podcast
maybe
because I
so.
am learning about that. There is a book, guys. Okay, it's right there. It's on the couch though. It's far away. Dang it. It's called the something gap. It's on the tip of my tongue. We'll put it in the notes. It's there, but if I get up and try to go get it, it's going to be a big botch on the sound right now for
It's
the
same.
podcast.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's you guys will know what it is. And I could, so another podcast, I think it's Call Her Daddy. Is that the name of it? I love the podcast.
Oh, sure.
I've listened to it a couple of times and she's so good. And my daughter Sunshine again, she told me about the book, and so I immediately got it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first started reading it, I could only get through probably the first 10 pages before I had to put it down. It was so, again, things that I don't feel ashamed, but I feel like sad that I didn't know it, and angry,
Yeah.
and emotional, like I'm really, really emotional about the things I didn't know that this late in the game I'm finding out, and I feel sorry that I wasn't there to represent my own self, number one, but no one else.
Yeah.
And so I feel really also strongly that it is going to be a big part of me going forward in my representation, just even in my work, representing and advocating for nurses. Holy moly, the things I've learned.
Oh, for sure.
And in healthcare, that's just, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that was already made me a minority, or whatever you call it. What did you say?
Is your pre-existing
my
condition?
pre-existing condition. Oh my gosh, that was amazing. Yeah. So, continue with what you're saying with.
Yes.
The pre-existings, yes. I wasn't aware of that, and I don't have anything now, but I've had experiences even with trying to find someplace as self-employed people, right?
Yeah.
That you can find something that is affordable. We have found that Christian Healthcare Ministries is what we use now, but learned a lot through that. But the charges that are you have to be your own advocate.
You do.
And you let the ball drop there, and that's insane. May I just say, this doesn't even have to go anywhere, but my hip, so I have this hip impingement, audience, and I've been dealing with it for about a year and a half. Oh, and then come to find out what I didn't know about menopause. That's a whole, again,
oh my gosh, right? It's
we
a whole
will
other
talk
topic.
about this, okay? Because this is all fresh in our minds now. And ReShonda, you know so much about stuff. Did you know, not to digress too much, but did you know a ton about menopause before I shared that with you, or did you?
I'd been studying quite a bit about menopause
have.
just because of my hormonal imbalance issues.
Over the last, how long?
Probably 4 or 5 years.
Oh, see what I'm saying? We do not know things about each other. So it might be your fault that I don't know about it. But anyway, so this hip impingement thing, so I'm dealing with that. And finally I'm getting around to an MRI. And so one place to get my MRI, who I will not mention, or do I? Don't know. I won't for now.
Yeah.
$5,600 for an MRI, and it just dawned on me. I'm like, oh, and I maybe they said something to me about there's other places to go, and maybe I'll take full responsibility that I should have known. But even if I did know, the drastic difference in charges from place A to place B.
Right. Yes.
So $5,600 to at the most $1,200.
Wow.
What in the world?
Wow. That's a huge difference.
What's happening there? So anyway, lots to learn. This is going to be so much fun to learn from you, because ReShonda does know a lot of stuff. And I'll be the one that's over here going, wow.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Well,
wow.
you know
Really?
just
Oh
as
God.
much.
No, I don't really.
Yeah,
And that's what's
I think
making
you do.
this is really great. So again, why I think these conversations are so much fun. and actually super important. It's the ones like this is a mini version of conversations that I get to have. You get to have, like for me at the kitchen table when I have
Mm-hmm.
these 7 kids, all from different generations. Well, not generations, but you know, our oldest is 39. You know, pregnant with her at 17. And then the next oldest is Abby, and she's 33. You know, then TJ's 31, then 29, then a little siesta, as we say. Levi's 23, Sonny's 21, Daniel's going to be 19 in a couple months. So sitting at the table, and even they have the opportunity to learn these different perspectives from these different ages, different experiences.
Sure.
But I learned a lot. And so in these conversations, even with my bestie, you know, learning things not only about you, but about your experiences in the world and what you know about the world that I don't know about is a gift, and really, really grateful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. What else do we want to say about the upcoming election? I know for me, okay, so you go. You go. What else do you want to say? Anything?
Yeah, when I think about even how like people might think like how do you even rank your top issues?
Uh-huh.
I I feel like the issues kind of go along the lines of like moral issues,
Mm-hmm.
social issues, um, primarily. And there may be some other little things, but moral and social
Yeah.
encompass most
Yes.
everything, and
Agreed.
it's you just kind of figure out um, there's one candidate that maybe is more focused on the morality, and uh, may it may speak to one audience, bigger than another or more than another, particularly a faith-based audience of people. Um, and then you have one that's maybe looking more at social issues, and that may appeal to another group, but it can also appeal to
Yeah.
faith-based,
Yeah.
groups.
Yeah.
And so, when I think about it, I think, you know, what are the things that even like I as a person, what are the things that I have the most control over? And what things do I feel like I don't? And based on what I don't feel like I have the most control over, then I want to see which candidate is stronger in those areas.
Oh God, I gotta break that down. It sounds really profound, and it was. And now I need you to explain it deeper. Um, Say it again.
So I look at
We're trying to be careful, right? Like we're
yes,
trying to be careful
absolutely.
because, and inside, to be honest, I'm like, do I want to be careful right now? Like I feel myself wanting to ask questions and talk things through. Um, and I don't. I want to make sure that whoever's listening is. This is just me. Listen, I have gotten, I have gotten kicked out of. Not kicked out. Kicked out is strong. But yes, for sure, kicked out of one church, 31 years ago, and strongly suggested, or the door held open for me for 3 others, and that's
It's
pretty
three.
vulnerable saying that.
Yeah.
But I have no. Um, I'm not angry with anyone. I don't. I mean, all of them lessons for me. I just say that because, and of course, we will talk about these things. I am so sorry about this fly. If anyone does podcasts that you know how to get rid of flies in the room before you start, please let us know. Anyway, I just say that because as you're talking to me, my natural instinct is to ask more questions because I sincerely want to know and I want to grow. I want to know and I want to grow.
Absolutely, both of us.
Right. And
Yeah.
so, although I want to, and I also want to make sure it's not that I'm afraid to ask them, it's that I want everyone to know that this is all inclusive here. Like
It
our
is all
space is
inclusive.
absolutely an all inclusive, everyone belongs space. Everyone has a seat at this table.
Absolutely.
You don't have to agree with what I say. I'm not here to tell you you are right or wrong. And I mean, as we talk through our faith, we're going to share those things as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think I probably believe different than most people I know, and that's okay too. Like
That's okay.
the reason I do is because people have been loving enough to share their perspective with me, their feelings, how they got there, their beliefs, how they got there, which opened my eyes. It didn't mean I had to, but it
Right.
definitely did. Anyway,
And it says a
so
lot that you are open to listening to different perspectives.
I think it's just interesting. And I don't judge people also that don't think it's interesting,
Right.
that feel very strongly in what they know to be true. And that's okay too. So anyway, back to you sharing some political things, and we're sharing these feelings and our thoughts about this upcoming election and our choices, and what things are important to us. That's just my pickle, I guess, is I want to ask more questions, and I just want to, I guess I have to trust, right, our audience that we
Right.
don't even know we have right now,
That
but
we don't even know.
we hope we do. That this is also the questions that we have, you and I have, are also questions that our audience has. And I'm okay to be that guinea pig.
Sure.
It's a little
Yeah.
bit scary, but so I guess let's just go and ask. I don't even know what time it is right now, how much time we're talking, but that the are you okay to break that down? If you're not, that's okay too.
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay, so is there a way to give an example? Because I really don't know. Like what you said, I got it very general.
Sure.
Go over that one part about where I feel I don't maybe feel strongly in something.
Or if I don't feel like I have as much control over.
Control was the right word. Okay.
Right. And so I feel like when it comes to, this is just me personally, when it comes to issues of morality,
yeah,
I think about what is my responsibility and who am I responsible for influencing.
yeah,
I am responsible for influencing those that are closest to me. Like I have a responsibility to them. To these kids who are not my kids, but they're my kids,
yeah,
I have a responsibility to let them know this is where my moral compass is at, and these are the reasons why, and influence there. I don't feel like I have even the right to put that off on anyone else.
Agreed.
I do not have the right to put my morality off on Angie.
Yeah, I agree.
And I respect whatever it is that your choices are. But for my family and for those that are in my fold, I have a responsibility to them to instill the values that I think are most important. Now, they, of course, have a choice, but I feel like I can be a little bit more pushy with them.
Yeah.
When it comes to a lot of social issues, I feel like my hands are tied a bit more. And I feel like that because a lot of the social issues, whether, you look at, prison reform, you have your for-profit prisons and you basically have slave labor, and you have so many people who they need to have locked up, and the reasons that they lock people up and who those people are that they lock up. Well, you need more than some influence over people that know. You need government, you need judges, you need more. So when I look at issues, what things do I feel like it is my responsibility for? And for those things, like, am I doing my part? I think sometimes we look for government and other people to do so much for us, and we're not willing to step up and do what we need to do.
Right, which is my agreement when I say earlier, hey, okay, forgive me, but what I say is, if I'm really feeling it, I'm like, so shut your pie hole, man. I mean, if you don't have enough skin in the game to show up like the rest of us who don't know, we don't have the answers. We're just doing our best to be responsible. And as you say, like, what can I control? What can I influence?
Right.
And we've taken the time to at least know the bare minimum and then show up to do that part. Then, you're just contributing to the commiseration of, tearing things down and not unifying us, but tearing us apart.
Right. Yeah. So I look at that, a lot of social issues, and I think, we need a little bit more, and we do need to have, government officials who have the same thought and maybe can do something more to change things, because there's some problems that are just way bigger than just those people that you have direct influence over. So
Okay, that was really well said and explained. Thank you. And I absolutely agree with all of it. And then it comes down to like peeling that onion back again, or one more layer for me it comes down to the same sort of thing. Like, how do one candidate morally fits here, but maybe socially doesn't,
right.
it is definitely a challenge. It is definitely a challenge.
Yeah. Some issues of morality I even look at as,
Yeah.
like, we talk about separation of church and state.
Yeah.
So issues of morality, does that not fall under church?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a little gray when we start putting it under state.
Yes.
Just my
It
opinion.
is. I know. It is. I know. And I don't. Yeah. And I'm just gonna say too. I mean, I think people think this. I mean, so I admit that the first time Trump was in office, I voted for him. I remember exactly where I was. It was at my sister's house in Portland, Oregon, a very liberal area. And I've been a libertarian for a very long time.
Sure.
And people have views on that too. Doing the best I can of wanting to financially be responsible for my country. And I think part of that was also because of it just feels so gross to all the diversity that always happens in elections. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to be a libertarian, and I'm going to look at these. This is it.
Yeah.
Financially, how are you going to take care of our country? And that's it.
Yes.
And I am more diverse now. When it comes down to it, my biggest question is, and so my mom and I'm just imagining her across the table from me and having this discussion, and she knows a lot too. And at the end of the day, for me, I haven't come to terms with understanding anyone that is going to represent my country causing dissension. I cannot. I tried really, really, really hard, because there are things that I would agree maybe more with on one side more than the other.
Sure.
And I don't get it. And I go, okay, so that part, if everyone gets what I'm saying there, at that part, there was a thing that you said. Oh, I lost it now. It was so it was, how can I come down to this? Oh, it comes down to, at the end of the day, we get to choose, I guess, who's going to be the person in the podium, right?
Right.
But they don't get to decide how we run our country, really. I mean, in most ways, it's us that is. So if Kamala gets in there, Trump gets in there, whatever, we're going to be the ones that are living our lives here. We decide how kind we are, or how we are causing dissension, or are we unifying, or are we being good human beings, loving other human beings,
right?
Or are we hating other human beings because they're different and their morality might be different,
right?
Or their social opinions and stance might be different. Are we hating them? Or are we open and willing to see things differently and agree to disagree? Which one is it? Because that's what's really going to cause us to, be in the dump or not.
For sure. Absolutely.
So that's really, as simplistic as that might sound. Again,
it's a real thing.
It's my space, my head space, my heart space. And I think naturally I just don't. And women, I think, are very, very good at this, being able to put head and heart together. That doesn't mean we all of us agree on things, certainly. Right. So yeah, I just think it's a shame that if there were important things to be done, unfortunately, they're not going to be very effective because of what the approach is. And that's a bummer. That's a bummer. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, that's a bummer. That's too bad, because at the end of the day, even if you were the greatest candidate in the world, I would still be like, I can't do it. I can't do it.
Right.
I can't have my grandchildren seeing hatred and name calling, and it makes me want to cry every time I see
Right.
that. I can't do it.
Right.
So that is a whole conversation around like morality, for instance.
Yeah.
Like that itself is such a division for our country. It's made that a division, like
Right.
an internal turmoil of.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I get that. My brother has given me, Luke, I'm going to drop his name, has given me a really, 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 really hard time for the way that I voted the first time. And I know that there's so many people, even in, not so many people, there are a few in my family and my friend circle. And I certainly know beyond that. And my mom talking to me about her friends and her, demographic, they're Catholic people. And they would lean definitely Republican, definitely having a hard time. So, there are people all across our country having a hard time trying to put this together.
Right.
With all of it. And it's a shame.
It is a shame.
What would you say to empower people? Like, as we're going to close, and then we'll probably have another one, and we'll see if we can get that next one out and see if we have any questions or what comes up for us that we feel like is important to follow up on. But before we leave, and close this up for our time now, what would you want to say about the upcoming election?
Yeah, I would definitely say, look at the person, each person, and look at your values. Mm-hmm. And we all have our moral values. We all have our social values. Like, what are those? And what of that do I have the influence over? And do I have the right to have the influence over? Mm-hmm. Like, what do I have the right to have the influence over? And so, look at those things and make your decisions based on values. I mean, I always say I'm independent. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be pigeonholed into either group to feel like, oh, I am a Democrat, so I have to vote for these people, even though I don't agree, or I am a Republican and I have to vote for these people, even though I don't agree really with them. Mm-hmm. Like, I think we need to take the time to be very thoughtful about who we choose, and then not just looking at presidential candidates, but who's running, for state offices. Yeah. Like, who's running for those offices? Because even when you look at who's president, well, depending on who controls the House and who controls the Senate, will anything get done anyway?
I know. We're going to keep talking about this, because then however, that being said, like, I feel like we're going to have another one, because you know a lot more about this than I do. I'm learning. That's the thing that deters folks from voting, at least younger generation for sure. Yeah. And I certainly know even people my own age that say it doesn't matter anyway. It doesn't matter anyway. It doesn't matter who I vote for, because they're not the ones that are going to make the decisions anyway. And it's just, it's so confusing. It's hard. Well, it feels big. It feels like there's all these things that are keeping me in my way to really just seeing the truth of the matter. Right. And honestly, people are working full-time jobs and taking care of kids. Yes. So they, we say, I heard you earlier, and I'm not dashing this, but it's simple to find out. But in my mind, it's even like, okay, so all right, after I get done with my so and so hours a day and do these for this people and get done this, but it is about prioritizing. I understand that. Yeah. So it is our responsibility. I think maybe there's some things that we can share with people that would give them, maybe help it be a little bit simpler to, if this makes sense to you, finding out, the different levels of government that we have opportunity to vote for, and finding out what their thoughts are and the issues are, and how they would sway one way or the other on them. If we can share that with the audience, maybe that would be helpful.
That would be helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe we do that for next time.
Okay.
If that's okay.
That's okay.
But yeah, anyway, just the point is that gets to be like, forget it then. It's just.
I know, because when you think, like, who are the judges who are on the ballot, and what have their, what have their votes been? What have they done? Yeah. Like, it does get to be daunting.
Yeah. Okay. So summarize that one more time, because I interrupted you and I didn't want to take away from what your final thing was.
Yeah. Take the time at least to pick out, like, your top 3 issues or so,
Okay.
and figure out like who aligns most with what aligns with me. But then also remembering, because people can get so wound up
Yeah.
about the elections, and I mean, it becomes such an emotional thing for people. It's like at the end of the day, whether Kamala is in office or Donald Trump is in office, you wake up the next day, your life probably has not changed that much.
Right.
You can't let that just like get all in your head and, start to affect how you're living and your outlook on life. Oh my gosh, the person I wanted didn't get in.
Yeah.
Life is doom and gloom. Well,
Literally, what's it going to change in your
right,
day to day?
right.
Right? Unless I'm missing something, what's it going to change?
What's it going to change? And then just remember, like we have our own free will and our free thoughts, and we're in control of so much more of our lives than what oftentimes we think. And a lot of times we are allowing media and what's put out there to influence our way of thinking, to control us more than us independently controlling our thoughts and making our decisions that are going to best put our lives and the lives of our families in the place that we want it to be.
Yeah,
So
that's good.
So for you?
Yeah, that, and I guess to your point, that as women, this intuition that we have, this guidance, this inner guidance is what I call it. When I'm speaking, for instance, this is all inclusive. To me, it doesn't matter. I call that inner guidance God. And I know that we all have it. And it can get really noisy. It can feel very chaotic. And I don't feel like that. That is a feeling that comes from that space in all of us where we're all connected. I do this thing when I'm speaking, and I hold my hand up and I say, everybody put your hand on your heart. And I say, so this is the space I'm talking about, where we were all connected, whether you call that God, whether you call that whatever you call that, or your intuition, whatever. When we do that, we all know what we're talking about, you know? So that would be what I want for my kids and myself and you and everyone, to be able to, even physically, just to put your hand on your heart at the day of election and just go, okay, I've gotten as much information as I can get. I'm doing the best I can in this moment right now. And literally, probably nothing's going to change. I'm just going to keep being me. And this is just another extension of that. I'm going to be my best right now. I'm going to vote for whatever's on my heart, and then to trust that, to trust what you've been given up to that moment, and trust yourself. That's what I say, because I don't know what else. That's like the best.
I think that's good. I think it's great.
Yeah. And I love your issues thing too. I'm going to totally write those down. Okay.
Right.
So thanks, everybody. This was so fun. This was 9 years in coming.
I know, right?
We'll have this a little about section that'll tell you a little bit more about us and what we're about. Hopefully you've got some vibes about what we're about. We're going to speak to women and all about relationships. This was our relationship with, our world, really, and our communities and our families.
Yes.
So we love you guys, and we're grateful that you're here, and we're excited to talk about what comes next. And thank you again to Miss Sunshine Gray. Sunshine
thank you.
Media, Sunshine Productions. And that's it. You guys have a great rest of your day.
All right.